Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, host of the Football History Dude podcast, right here on the Sports History Network. Now, before we jump into another sports history adventure, let me tell you about this episode's sponsor. We partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get deals on over 30,000 autographed sports collectibles. They even have film, music, and other entertainment autographs on the site, so there's something for everyone. Perhaps you're looking for a gift for Mother's Day, or maybe Father's Day. Heck, who needs a holiday as an excuse to give a piece of sports history to your loved ones? Or how about yourself? Today seems like a great day to add to your sports cave, right? But how is RSA able to offer such great deals on JSA authentication, you ask? Well, they do this by making deals directly with athletes, so there are no extra markups, and they choose to pass these savings on to the customer. All orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and money-back guarantee. And to make sure RSA knows that the Sports History Network sent you, we created a special link for you. All you have to do is head to shoprsa.com/SHN. Again, that's shoprsa.com/SHN. Head over there to get your piece of sports history today.
Our friend historian Timothy P. Brown recently had a post of the biggest dudes in football history prior to World War I. The names on this list are varied. Some famous, while some others you may have never heard of. Tim reminds us to remember the big guys from over 100 years ago in this podcast and in his post. Coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes at pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome again to Tuesday Archaeology.com day with Timothy P. Brown joining us. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Thank you, Darren. Look forward to chatting once again, trying to see what we can uncover here.
Yeah, we always talk about you have some unique items that you share in the daily tidbits, and we'll tell the listeners how to join that each and every day here near the end of this podcast. But you have one that's really unique, and you're talking about the size of players back before the World Wars, and really interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, so this tidbit was about a guy named Robert Blanchard, and this is just a classic example where I was looking for one thing, and I kind of the article next to it shows this illustration or drawing of this rather large individual. And so I recorded that and then came back to it later on. And so so basically it's kind of the idea is this guy was a very big player. I mean, huge man today by today's standard. But back in the day, and really, I would say until just after World War II, oftentimes the linemen were about the same size as the backs. Now that seems, kind of impossible nowadays because there really is quite a discrepancy. Although you see some of the things that see some of the guys running around at the combine, you realize there's some athleticism in very large sizes nowadays. But so anyways, so it's just kind of caught my eye, and it kind of took me back to one of the first football collectible items I bought was a game program, and it was like Princeton versus somebody from like 1943. And I was just looking at the thing, and then between the two teams, I think there were like two guys over 200 pounds. And so then to see this Robert Blanchard, and at his size, was pretty striking. So it kind of caused me to go back and look at, okay, so who were claimed to be the biggest guys in college football at different times pre World War II, anyways. And mostly I looked at pre World War I. But so one of the guys, Pudge Heffelfinger, famous Yale player, but he was considered massive, but he was also very quick. Played guard for them, but he was 210 pounds. And then there is Tiny Maxwell, who was considered, just massive, and he was 240, which today is like linebackers are 240 pounds. And then there were a bunch of guys that were like 270 pounds or better, but just only a couple of guys here and there. But this Robert Blanchard, who played for Hinsdale High School in New Hampshire, he was 6'2", 410. So, that's a big boy. And, the newspaper articles, said he was pretty agile, for his size, but still, he didn't play college football or anything. He was so big that, he couldn't get football pants. They were making the old quilted pants, back at the time with the padded, the whole front of the pads or front of the pants were padded. So, he was one of these guys who was so big, he kind of became he was like a circus exhibit, that they got bigger crowds when they went on the road just because everybody wanted to see this big guy play, So, it sounds like he was a decent player. Like I said, I think earlier that he didn't play college. So, he just kind of went off and lived his life. But 410 pound or 412 pound man, that's a pretty good sized fellow. So then it also gets into the, I don't think I really covered this much in the tidbit but it's okay. So what changed? Why do we have so much discrepancy now between backs and linemen? And, there's gradations. You got tight ends and linebackers, and, they're kind of somewhere in between. But so, I think one of them is just, I've got like 4 or 5 different reasons. And if you want to jump in and throw one or several out, have at it. But I think, so one of the things is just nutrition, societal nutrition. I know when, the GIs inducted in World War II, the average guy was like 5'8", 145, So that's not a real big fella, right? But now, you go to any high school and there's all kinds of kids who are 6'5", 6'4", and, pretty sizable. Not all of them carrying good weight, but nevertheless, there's a lot of big frames out there, if nothing else. So, I think that's got to be mostly just, as much as we decry, the nutrition nowadays, and rightfully, it's still better than it was, right? People just have food on the table pretty much all the time.
Yeah, and that was probably right in that era when up in Michigan they were starting like the training tables for the athletes and stuff too, that give them better nutrition, at least during the football season, for the football athletes. And I think that carried on and became, like today people are nutritionalists all year long, even in the off season they're training. So I think there's a lot of merit to that with the nutrition. And I think our foods today have a lot more preservatives. I think that makes us all gain a little bit more weight than probably our ancestors did. It makes us grow taller and have features that are larger than previous generations. So I think there's a lot of merit to what you say.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's other, like, for me, really the number one thing in my mind is it's 2 platoon football kind of combined with free substitution. You think about, again, as good athletes as some of these offensive linemen and defensive linemen are, if they had to play every down, if they were 60-minute men, they might still be the same guys out there playing, but they would not carry the kind of weight that they're carrying now. They would have used all the scientific advances to train to a different style of body. And I think you just look at, rugby players, world-class rugby players. There aren't, 240 is kind of the top end. Here and there's going to be some Samoan dude who's like, or New Zealander who's 260 or 265. But those guys are they're big men, big frames. They're just not anywhere near the size of a 6'7", 6'8" offensive tackle.
Yeah, but didn't and not the I don't want to ruin your thunder here, but didn't the role of the tackle back in that era was a little bit different than it is now, because they could carry the ball. You'd really want you like your best athlete, like Pudge Heffelfinger. I mean, there's a reason why he was the first paid professional player. Everybody wanted him on their team because he was so valuable at that tackle position. Not that tackles aren't valuable today, but I mean, they were like the superior athletes of the era. That's where you wanted your best player to be. So
So I mean, guards, tackles, ends carried the ball. I mean, you look at the old Stag and Camp, books. They got play design showing all of that, and just read the old newspapers, and that's quite clear. But it's so, and then like you think about like it used to be that the center was. Some teams had big centers, and others said, no, we want a little bit smaller guy, because especially when they started dropping the center off the line a little bit on defense, and they called him a roving center. And that was really the start of kind of what we now think of as middle linebackers. That guy had to be able to move laterally, right? And so if it was a big, heavier, powerful guy, that might help him on offense, but not so much on defense. So you just need to be able to move, a bit more. And again, you had to do offense and defense. Quarterbacks, you typically didn't have a guy who was 6'5", 6'6", because he had to play safety as well, right? So just, and then the other thing, especially with the linemen, is the change in offensive blocking rules. Once you gave offensive tackles the ability to extend their arms, now all of a sudden you can have a 6'8", 6'7" guy with long arms, and boom, he's just can be past. I mean, he's attacking to some extent, but whole different strategy than like when I played. You couldn't do that yet.
Right.
You punched and backed up, punched and backed up. I mean, that's what you did. As an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
So,
it's sort of levels the playing field out a little bit for those larger, taller players, like you say before. With the old blocking rules, the lower center of gravity guys would win every time against a 6'3" guy that weighed 250 would kill a 6'8" guy. He couldn't do anything to deter that defender, that little fire plug from coming in, if he wanted to. But now that gives him his reach and everything else with the hands. So I think that's a great rule that when they changed that. And that was probably only 1980s. I think they changed that. Yeah,
it started changing in the second half of the 70s. It changed in the pro level first, and then at the college level. And then obviously, beyond all of that, you also just the scouting and the selection process, and we're much better at they did not rope drills, but they did like box drills and all kinds of attempts to make guys to improve their ability to move. But weight training and skills training is so much more advanced, especially post 1970 or that kind of era is when that really started taking shape. So anyway, it's a whole bunch of reasons, but yeah, there's some big boys out there on the field nowadays.
Yeah, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody 410 pounds, like you said. Robert Blanchard was back in the day.
Bob was a big fella.
Yeah, I guess so. And you have a really nice sketch of him. I don't think you drew it, but I think it's from back in the day of him standing next with the football in his arm next to another gentleman who I'm going to assume is like the average size guy, and just towers over him and looks like a child next to an adult. That's what the thing. So, folks, like we said, we're going to have links to Tim's site on this article. So make sure you follow those and take advantage of some of these images he has on the tidbits as well. Some great stuff that really goes to prove the point of what the story that's being told. So, Tim, I just wanted to mention, you mentioned earlier one of your examples besides Pudge Heffelfinger, Tiny Maxwell, and he's kind of an interesting fella. A couple really big games that he was, or maybe not games, but the big events in football history that he was involved with. For one, he was sort of the face of the rough brand of football that the story goes that President Teddy Roosevelt saw a photograph of Tiny Maxwell after a game that he played in college and was beat up pretty bad, and it sort of made his urgency to call the powers that be into the White House to talk about reforming football. And then a few years after that, in the 1906 season, they had a big game at the professional level. Massillon and Canton, Massillon Tigers and the Canton Bulldogs played, big rivalry, and ended up being a very scandalous game. But they knew it was the big rivalry. They wanted the biggest guy they could to keep control of this game, so they got big Tiny Maxwell to officiate, and he was the official on that game where professional football almost ended that day because of the scandalous affairs that happened sort of outside of the game. But he's an interesting name in football history.
Yeah, well, he officiated a lot once he was out of once he no longer played. So, but I wasn't aware of the Canton story, so I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's a big event. Almost ended pro football. the big 1906 controversy. So, Tim, why don't we share with the listeners how they can listen in, or I'm sorry, read on in your tidbits that we talk about here each Tuesday, but because you have these coming out 365 days a year, and really enjoyable and unique stuff.
Yeah. So it's, if you're interested in getting them, just go to my website, footballarchaeology.com. I mean, obviously you can just read anything at your leisure there, but if you want to get them every day, just subscribe and you'll get an email at 7:00 Eastern every day with, whatever I wrote for that particular 24 hours. And then a couple of others, here and there, a little bit longer articles, twice a month, typically. Or the alternative is to, just follow me on Twitter at Football Archaeology. And there it's going to become a little bit more hit or miss whether you see it or not. But so kind of up to you, however you like to consume information. Either one's available to you.
All right. Timothy P. Brown, footballarchaeology.com is the name of the website. His daily tidbits are available, and you can also listen to him here, pigskindispatch.com, each and every Tuesday. Tim, we thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Hey, great. Looking forward to it. See you in 7 days.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hi, this is Joe Ziemba, the host of When Football Was Football, here on the Sports History Network. I'm very pleased to announce that I will be partnering with the Sports History Network to give away 2 copies of my latest book called Bears vs. Cardinals, the NFL's Oldest Rivalry. To enter, just head over to the following link, sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. We hope you'll enjoy the numerous stories in the book, which is largely based on the newly released Dutch Tournament collection at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Dutch was the co-owner of the early Chicago Bears with George Halas and kept correspondence, financial records, and scouting reports, which now allow us to peek into the management of an NFL club during the first few years of the league's existence. Along the way, we'll meet unusual gridiron characters from years gone by, including a quarterback who could throw the ball farther behind his back than he could throwing it forward, a Bears lineman who was such a good tavern fighter that he decided to enter the boxing universe, and a Cardinals halfback who gave up the NFL rushing title by deciding to not show up for his team's final game of the season. And can we forget the time the Al Capone mob interrupted a Bears-Cardinals game? The new book was fun to research, and I hope you'll enter our free contest today. Once the winners are selected, we'll be in touch regarding shipping as well as to inscribe the book personally for you. This might make a perfect gift for Mother's or Father's Day, or simply add it to your own personal collection. Once again, enter by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. Thank you and good luck.